Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Listener Questions installment of the Meditations and More podcast, brought to you by shamanspiritcenter.com and littleshaman.org. That's me, the Little Shaman. This is the show where I take questions from you, the listener, and answer them on the air. If you're interested in submitting your questions, you can do that by sending them to thelittleshamanhealing@gmail.com or using the contact form through my website. Please use a name that I can read on the air. It doesn't have to be your name. And please do not include any identifiable information for you or anybody else. Make sure the subject line says listener questions. I have my co-host Caitlin with me today. Caitlin, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, Little Shaman. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you for asking, and she's going to help me with the questions, so let's get started.
All right, so today we have, looks like 4 questions. This question is from Sarah. So Sarah says, I just got discarded after 17 years of abuse. I was 19 when we met. I've endured light abuse, so no punching or slapping in the face, mostly throwing me around.
Stop. That's abuse. There's no such thing as light abuse. That's abuse. Go ahead.
And also, he's cheated several times. He's actually left us, me and 4 kids, twice because of these women. My issue is nightmares. Every single night, I dream the same thing, but the setup or scenario is different each time. In the dream, he always tells me he's leaving me for someone else and doesn't love me. This started 5 years ago with the last cheating. When things are good, they tend to go away, but when things are bad, the dreams are relentless. He left us June 1st, so this is all pretty fresh. You can imagine how bad the dreams are now. I'm scared to sleep. Even though I eventually wake up, when I'm dreaming, it's very real. I'm living my worst fear over and over. It takes forever to fall back asleep after crying and having a panic attack. Breaking this trauma bond of 17 years is excruciating. Why do I do this, and how do I stop? Please help. Sarah.
Okay, Sarah, thank you for your question. I'm so sorry you're going through that. You know, you said I'm living my worst fear over and over, and I assume you're referring to your dreams, but actually, you are living your worst fear in reality too. And dreams are usually our brain trying to work things out. So it sounds like your brain is just trying to deal with this whole situation. However, the frequency and the vividness of the nightmares makes me wonder if maybe you don't need to see a therapist or a counselor or somebody, because this could be some type of PTSD situation, especially because there was abuse involved, physical and obviously emotional. So I think that in this case, you may want to find someone in your area that you can speak to face. And on your own time, you can start looking into some exercises to relieve stress. You can do meditating, you can do yoga, go for walks in nature, do something that we call earthing, which is walking outside with no shoes on, because this is probably a stress-related situation. And also, a lot of times writing letters, like say you have unresolved feelings, as I'm sure you do, you can write a letter to him. You don't have to give it to him. Just write down everything you want to say, everything you feel, really get that out. And then you can bury the letter in the ground. You can tear it up and throw it away. You can burn it, or anything that will help you get closer to closure. Because unfortunately, there may not be the type of closure that you would ultimately and ideally desire in this situation. So you're going to have to work on doing that for yourself. Now, I know it hasn't been that long. It's only been since June. But according to you, this nightmare situation has gone back quite a bit. So like I said, this might be a situation where you might want to find somebody you can work on that face-to-face with. Thank you very much for that question. I really hope things get better for you.
This next question comes from Grateful Listener. I've been listening to your podcasts for well over a year and have learned so much. My life has significantly changed for the better due to implementing your wisdom and suggestions. My question is there ever a situation where compassion for the narcissist is the better choice rather than going no contact? Do I do nothing and watch him lose his place to live? I've tried in the past and it nearly destroyed me. I currently have a restraining order. Thank you, Grateful Listener.
Thank you very much for that question, Grateful Listener. You know, in a way, I think you kind of answered your own question. And a lot of the ones I get, people do that. And even when I speak to clients on the phone or during email appointments and things like that, people really do know the answer to the question. This is really something that you're going to have to decide. Do you think it's worth it to try to help? As you said, you have tried to help this person in the past and it has nearly destroyed you. I completely and totally understand the desire to help and also the desire not to help, because you realize what it's going to do to you, and this person is not going to appreciate it more than likely. What you can do is remind yourself that you're not responsible for this person. They're an adult, I assume, and it's not your responsibility to make sure they have a place to live. It's not your responsibility to make sure they can hold a job, or whatever the problem is, that's up to them. It's not your responsibility to take care of another adult. That's their own responsibility. One of the things we find in relationships with narcissistic people is they try to force you to become responsible for them. You have to decide that you're not going to do that you're not responsible for them, because the truth is you're not. If they cannot secure their own housing, keep a job, get their own vehicle and other things that they need, that's their problem. It's not yours, and it is not your job to fix this person's problems or take care of them. So once again, this is a question that you're going to have to answer for yourself, but to be honest with you, it looks like you already did. In a more general sense, is compassion ever the better choice? You know, I have compassion for narcissists. I think it's really a shame the way that they deal with things and the way that they feel, but I'm not going to let anybody take advantage of me because of that. My compassion doesn't include selling myself out, and I hope yours doesn't either. If you have a restraining order against this person, you might want to take a few minutes and remember why you do. And once again, this is really up to you. It's your life. But if you're going to do it out of guilt or because you feel sorry for this person, just remember this. They are never going to learn how to face consequences or anything else if somebody keeps coming to their rescue and does everything for them. It's just a thought. If I've misunderstood your question and you were actually saying that going no contact nearly destroyed you, the only thing I can say is continuing to use heroin because the withdrawals are bad is never the answer. Thank you very much for that question, grateful listener.
Thank you, Little Shaman. This next question comes from Joanne. Thanks so much for your videos. They help me a great deal. I would like your help with understanding why the narcissists in my family act like I don't exist. Is it normal behavior for narcissists to punish you this way? I'm doing my very best to go no contact, and it would help me further if I could understand this. Thanks. Joanne.
Thank you very much for that question, Joanne. The truth is, it's not that uncommon for them to do that. If people are narcissistic, then in their opinion, removing their attention from you is the worst thing they could ever do. They believe that they are so important that if they don't pay any attention to you, you're really going to suffer for that. Sometimes it's true, and sometimes it's a blessing. Giving people the cold shoulder, the silent treatment, treating them like they're inferior or like they're not there. These are all common narcissistic types of punishments because to them, the worst thing that could ever happen is to be treated like you don't exist. So it's not uncommon at all. Thank you very much for that question, Joanne.
All right, and our last question comes from John. What is the best way to process and deal with intense emotions such as anger, depression, and sadness after ending the relationship? Thanks for everything you do. Your videos have been helping me so much. John also gave a video topic suggestion.
And we thank him for that as well. Thank you for the question and thank you for your suggestion. I'm going to be seeing what I can do about that. You don't say how recent the ending of the relationship was, and that actually plays a pretty big role in the situation because the closer you are to the trauma or to when this happened, the more intense the emotions are going to be. So it's really true that time does heal all wounds. You know, I always tell people, let time take time. But that's very hard for people to hear when they just want to feel better. There are a lot of things you can do to try to process the emotions. Remember, you got to feel it to heal it, so you don't want to try to escape them. You want to really let them come through, feel them, acknowledge them. As you heard me suggest earlier, a lot of times writing letters to people and things like that to really, or journaling to really help get your feelings out, that does help. Now, if it's only been 2 months, then you're still going to feel really angry, really sad. I mean, that's how it is. You have to go through the grieving process. If it's been a year, you might want to look at why are you still feeling the way that you are? Why are you stuck, so to speak? And there can be a lot of different reasons for that. So it just really all depends. If you find that you're ruminating on situations and things like that from the past, or that you're having obsessive thoughts about things, one of the things you can do to try to interrupt that is to stop yourself in the middle of thinking them and say, this is over with, there's nothing I can do about it, and I'm not going to think about it anymore. And then deliberately and purposely find something else to do or start thinking about something else. You would be surprised how often that really is helpful. The way you talk to yourself and things like that, they matter a lot. And also, once again, if you're really finding that you're stuck and you cannot move on, and it's been, a decent amount of time, you can always find someone in your area to help you deal with this face to face. It can be especially hard to let out anger, and sometimes people need to have physical expressions of anger, such as going to the batting cage. Maybe you take a bunch of stuff that you really don't like anyway in the backyard and smash it all up. Some junkyards will let you go and bust all the windows out of cars that are there. There's a couple things you can do to really get that out. But once again, if you find that you're stuck, then you want to figure out why you are stuck and work on getting unstuck. So thank you very much for that question, John. That was a good one.
All right, and that's all the questions we have for this week. Thank you so much to Sarah, grateful listener, Joanne, and John for your questions. To everyone listening, you can send your questions to thelittleshamanhealing@gmail.com. Make sure your subject line says listener questions, and be sure not to include anything that you do not want read on the show. Thank you for your questions.
And that's going to wrap us up here on the listener questions installment of the Meditations and More podcast, brought to you by shamanspiritcenter.com and littleshaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you and have a wonderful day.